Welcome, everyone. Welcome. I'm going to give it another minute or two. Everyone files in from the waiting room. But while we wait, feel free to throw into the chat where you're calling in from. I don't know whether to greet you all with good morning or good afternoon or good evening or good night if you're very far away from me. So yeah, pop into the chat.
Trying to read as fast as they're coming in, Jordan.
Easier said than done.
I saw Serbia. That's a first. Welcome. Boston.
Yep, all caps Boston. I appreciate that. I am calling in from Boston.
Any Philly or Kansas City people?
I'm in Philly.
Nice. Good luck.
It's gonna be a fun next couple weeks.
Yeah, it's exciting. KC, you're against Jack in this course. You can have a little enterprise bake-off with Manchester, England. They don't care about football over there. They have the real football. A lot of Denver and Atlanta. Ireland. Nice. It's not too late in the UK there. That's why. I got chewed out for saying Ireland was part of the UK, so don't make that mistake. One of my clients got really mad at me for that. I'm sorry. Like Wales, England, Scotland, not Ireland. All right. Whenever you're ready, Jordan. I know you're letting a million people in, but
Yeah, they're still filing in, but I know we have a lot of ground to cover and fixed amount of time. So everyone who hops in moving forward can just play catch up. But all right, without further ado, welcome everyone to Enterprise Sales School with Pavilion University and Ian Koniak. I am your host, Jordan Russo, only host in the sense that I'm hosting the Zoom call. I'm not that important. I've probably annoyed all of you by now with Slack messages and emails and just constant communication, but I do that because I want everyone to be here. So if you need me for, any kind of tech difficulties, anything like that, you can find me in Slack or you can email me. I'll do everything I can to help out. But the real star of the show is Ian Koniak. So I'm going to give the floor to him. Take it away, Ian.
I don't know about all that, but thank you, Jordan. I'll take it. Welcome everyone to Enterprise Sales School. My name's Ian. I am the dean of the school. I also run a coaching business similar to this, and I get the pleasure of training people and coaching people every day, salespeople, on how to thrive in enterprise sales, and not just enterprise sales.
What is up, and welcome to my.
Whoa, I don't know where that was. Someone's looking at my YouTube, I think. So looking at just what we're going to cover, I want to give a few logistics about the class, what to expect. It's a big class. You guys broke the record for last year's school, so congratulations already. I'm just going to tell you kind of one thing and one thing only, like before we begin, is this is a commitment. This class is a commitment. It's not a long commitment. It's 10 weeks, but it's a commitment nonetheless. And last year we had a lot of people in the first class, and then it kind of gradually withered down a little bit. So a lot of people weren't really committed. Commitment's not showing up for one class, okay? Commitment is showing up for all the classes and doing the work in between. So I'm not telling you that because I'm impacted. I'm not impacted at all whether or not you show up. Honestly, it's a smaller Zoom, less screens for me to look at. But you're impacted. So all I can tell you is everything I'm going to teach in this program is built on 18 years in the field. And everything that I teach is what works. Okay. If you go to this class, if you actually attend and do the work, you will come out much stronger than if you don't. That's a promise. That's a guarantee. I can say that with confidence because I've been coaching and training people for a long time, and the ones that engage and do the work and show up are the ones that perform. All right. It's like life. You got to show up. So that's the first thing I'll share. The second thing is this is pretty informal. It's about as dressed up as I'll ever get. And the next ones, you'll see me in t-shirts. So basically this is for you, right? The way I'm going to structure the course, I want to keep it interactive. I'm going to leave 30 minutes every single time at the end for Q&A. So you can ask me whatever you want, anything based on the lessons, anything that maybe is top of mind that you're thinking about. Right now is a tough time in tech. It's really tough. I got a few texts this morning from people at Salesforce that I know that were laid off. And so if you're worried, if you want to know how to sell in a tough economy, if you got things on your mind about sales, just shoot them my way. It's nothing's off limits here. Okay. I want to create an environment where you feel like you have support, and you do have support. I've been in your shoes for 18 years, as I said, and then 2 years I've walked 100% of the time coaching and working with salespeople. So I live to sell. I live for sales, and I'm very grateful, but it can be a roller coaster. Okay. So the goal here is to help you learn what it takes to succeed continuously and consistently in enterprise sales and get off the roller coaster in some capacity. Okay. In your mind, at least, not going with the highs and lows and having an emotional roller coaster, but being able to ride it consistently. So that's what we're going to learn today. I'm going to stop talking, and the format's going to be deck for the first hour. And then I want you to write down your questions or put them in the chat as they come in, and Jordan will grab them. And then the last half hour, we'll literally go through questions. Okay. Last year when I did this course, I was talking too much. So we didn't get to all the questions. I would talk for an hour and a half, and it just didn't work. So I said, I'm going to cut whatever I am at 60 minutes. I'm cutting it off so we can go through questions and coaching and Q&A. Does that sound good to everyone? All right. So I'll talk fast. I'll cover a lot. Don't worry. Just write down your questions. We'll get to them as we go along, because there is a lot of content, and I want to get through most of it. So let's talk about the school a little bit. Today, we're going to do an overview of what enterprise selling is and what it isn't. Okay. We're going to give you some of the principles, some of the foundations, some of the concepts that have helped me be very consistent with selling. And we are going to really kind of scratch the surface today in all of the concepts, and then we'll start diving deep starting next week. As far as the things you hear and see in this class, everything is confidential. It's meant for you and for Pavilion enterprise sales students only. This is very valuable information. Please don't distribute it outside of this particular group. And this is all IP from the program from myself. So just keep it confidential. No sharing on social, unless it's a share of like the Zoom of everyone saying welcome to this school, but not the actual deck and the content. A little bit about me. This is what I live for. It's my family. They are why I do what I do. And I have 2 boys, beautiful wife, Sandy. I'm a founder and CEO of my own coaching business. Before that, I spent 9 years at Salesforce, 10 years at Ricoh. I sold over $100 million with myself and my teams in my career at sales, 16 of 19 years overachievement, and former #1 enterprise AE at Salesforce. So I'm not a trainer in the traditional sense that's coming in and teaching medic or, spin or challenger. I'm a salesperson in the field teaching what I know. So I've also led sales teams as well, up to 80 people on different teams. I share this not to brag, but to inspire that sales is a awesome opportunity if you do it well. And if you reach the top of it, it can provide a dream life for you, for your families, for everything. But more importantly, for me, it's about pursuing my full potential. It truly is about becoming the best version of myself. And sales gives you an opportunity to do that. So that's what drives me every day. That's my personal why, is pursuit of my full potential. And it continues to be every day. Now, it wasn't always the case. You saw I hit sales. I hit quota 16 of 19 years in a row, but there was a really rough stint in there. I missed quota 3 years in a row at Salesforce between 2014 and 2016. Those 3 years were all consecutive. And it all came to a breaking point, January 31st, 2017, literally 2 days ago, 6 years ago. Okay. And I'll tell you a quick story to inspire you on give you hope if maybe you're not performing to your full potential yet. For me, I had been a top performer at Rico. I'll just stop my screen so you can see me fully. I had been a top performer at Rico. And I had been in this, Rico sells copiers and printers. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a transactional type of sale. Okay. And if you work hard, you're rewarded. If you hustle, you're rewarded. Okay. It's all about activity, more pipeline, more results. So I took that approach to Salesforce. I'm like, I don't care what I have to sell. I can go to Salesforce and kill it because I'm a hard worker and I got a good track record. And I found a manager who bet on me, and I hustled and I grinded and I got in the door with a CIO at a big hospital. I ended up closing $1 million deal my first year at Salesforce, $1 million deal. I didn't really close it. I just brought in my team. My boss closed it. He brought in all the other executives and basically took over. It was awesome. And then I thought I was really hot shit. I thought I was like, man, 11 years in a row, I'm amazing. Yeah, it was about $1 million ARR. It was like a $850K ARR deal. And it was 2.4 million 3-year contract. So it was a pretty chunky deal. My quota was $1 million my first year. I had a ramp quota. And so I'm thinking, man, I can do no harm. And so I get in with this confidence, cockiness, and I bomb the next year. Okay. 50% of plan. It was bad. I sold like 1.1 against the 2 quota, 2 million. And then my quota went up to 2.5. The next year I sold 1.3 against a 2.5 quota. So like 60%. Now my ego is shattered. But I'm not willing to accept responsibility yet. I'm not willing to say, hey, this is my fault, right? I'm looking at my territory, at my boss, at my accounts. I'm looking at everything else outside of myself, all right? And so I'm like, I can't work for this guy. I can't be an enterprise rep. I'm going to go to the commercial team. And I'm going to get out of here. I need more at bats. I'm just a transactional guy. Give me my shot. And I go to the commercial team. They give me a shot to go over there, thankfully. And I sell more deals than anyone, more hustle, more just triple down on my activity. And I end up selling more deals than everyone. But there's one deal that I still need to get to quota. It's the end of the fiscal year, January 31st. It's a $250K deal. I'm sitting at 95% of plan. Okay, 95%. I get a call from the president of the company. She says, come in, sign. We got the paperwork. Come and pick it up. We just have a couple questions before we sign. I'm like, yes, finally, redemption. I get into the president's office, and she's a lady I never met before. I'd been working with their CRO and CFO. And she goes and she says, hey, ask me a few questions about the deal. I answer it. She's like, okay, just wait outside. I got to make one phone call. I'm like, great. She leaves me hanging outside for an hour. I hear her in the office speaking Chinese. Okay. And kind of like being animated in there. And I'm like, what's going on? Getting a little nervous. Like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, still going. Another phone call, another person. I'm like, oh, this ain't good. She comes out an hour later and she pulls me in and she says, Ian, I'm sorry, but we can't do the deal. And I'm like, I feel my heart jump. You go into this like flight or fright mode, right? Fight or flight. You're like, what do you mean you can't do the deal? What's going on? Like, tell me what's going on. It's like, well, I've been talking to our parent company in China, and it looks like they're also doing a CRM initiative. And they want to do some diligence and make sure there's not redundant efforts. So they need us to hold off before we sign so we can look at what we're doing versus what they're doing and make sure it's not duplicate efforts. I'm like, let me talk to the CIO. This ain't duplicate efforts. Here's all the things we're doing that's unique, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, look, I can't make the decision. If you want to talk to the CIO and he says yes, go for it. She gives me his number. I'm calling, doesn't pick up. I'm emailing. I sent 4 or 5 emails, kept calling, nothing. By this time, they're closing out the office. They say, Ian, you got to get out of here. And I said, here's the DocuSign. Just, it's in your inbox. Let me get him. When I say yes, if I can get him to say yes, will you sign? She's like, absolutely. I finally get on the phone. It's about 10 o'clock at night. Okay. He picks up, says, Ian, why do you keep calling me? What's going on? What's so urgent? I'm like, this is the last day of our fiscal year. We have to get this deal done or else you're going to lose it. Right? When we're working 6 months for this deal, it's not the same thing. I didn't even ask what they were doing. So it's not what you're doing. Here's what it is. Can you sign it? He's like, Ian, I'm sorry, but I'm on vacation with my family. right now. This is not how I do business. Click. And I screamed. I screamed at the top of my lungs. I dropped the biggest F-bomb you'll ever hear. I won't do it because we got a lot of people here, but it was the biggest pain I had had in my career. 3 years in a row now, missing quota. I remember my head was pulsating. My ears were ringing. I looked in the mirror and I didn't even recognize myself. It was like an out-of-body experience. It really was. And at that point, I said, never again. I will never be in this position again. I will do whatever it takes to be successful in sales. Okay? So if you're not successful right now, if you're not having the results that you're hoping for, if that's why you're here, I promise you there's hope on the other side. That following year, I finished #1 globally at Salesforce. I made over 7 figures. The next year, I finished in the top 5, repeated a similar income. The following 2 years after that, I made club, and then I retired from sales, and now I get to coach salespeople. So 4 years in a row, I went from averaging about 1.3 million to averaging 3.6 million in ACV every year. Okay. Which again, against the quota of, my quota went down, fortunately, to around 1.5 to 2, but it was still, 200-300% a plan averaging. So there's hope. I say that to inspire you, but the big thing that changed, you ask what changed. I'm going to share what changed. One, my mindset changed. I got humbled. I looked in the mirror and said, wow, maybe I don't know what I'm doing. I need help. And when you're receptive to getting help, everything changes. The universe, God, whatever you want to say, comes and people come into your life and things come to help you because you're in a space where you are receptive and open and willing. And that's when you get rewarded, #1. So I was humbled and my heart was open. Okay. #2, I changed my approach. And everything I did after that is what I'm going to teach you in the school. Okay. In other words, the biggest change was I went from a grinder, transactional seller, all relying on hard work, hustle, and activity to a strategic seller. And I didn't have those skills developed yet. So I had to learn them. But I was in a place where I was receptive and open to learning how to become a strategic seller. So you have to be open. You got to leave your ego at the door and you got to be receptive. And that's what I hope you are going into this class. So I know it's a long story, but I think it's really powerful and inspiring for a lot of people to know that there is hope on the other side. So let's dive into what changed. I'm going to share my screen again and we'll keep going. So you ask what changed? What changed? A lot changed. A lot changed. But the biggest change I made in terms of, besides mindset and humility, was, and I got help. I'll just tell you, I joined the mastermind, right? I joined a sales mastermind. I hired a coach. I got a lot of help. When I was humbled and I realized I didn't know the way, that my way wasn't necessarily the right way, it wasn't working, that's when I became open and I actually started reaching out to other people for help. So that's a big part of it too. So here's what I learned and here's what I started practicing after I got all this help. #1 is transactional sellers, hustlers, grinders, people that work hard. What they tend to do is they spend more time on smaller opportunities at a lower level in the organization. Right? It's not that they're not working hard. They're just not working smart. They're thinly spread. So my last year where I missed quota barely 95%, I actually did more deals than anyone else, but those deals were averaging 50K. So I was at 1.4 million that year. Well, do the math, right? Do the math. That's 20 plus another 8. That's 28 deals. That's a lot of deals, right? That's a lot of deals averaging 50K. I did more deals than anyone on the team did. I missed my quota. So that didn't make a lot of sense. What switched is I started focusing, instead of spending a little bit of time on a lot of opportunities at the department level, I started spending a lot of time, okay, on fewer but larger opportunities at the executive level. So 2 things. #1, fewer deals, better execution, multi-threading, going deeper. And #2, executive sponsorship. I went from bottom-up selling to top-down selling. Okay, those are the two things that change. So that's what I'm going to teach you in this class. It's we're going to learn how to get to executives. We're going to learn specifically how to go in. I think, Jordan, did we delete the schedule of events on here? I don't see it. Maybe
We might have, but that's okay because the syllabus lays it all out.
Okay, so in the syllabus, I'll just kind of walk through what we're going to learn. Is this week we're going to go through an overview. Next week we're going to go through the qualities and the skills that you need as an enterprise seller. Then we're going to get into core territory management, account planning. We're going to go through goal setting and actually how to map to your income goals, not to your quota goals. We're going to get into messaging in week 5. Then we're going to get into prospecting to power, right? How to get into power. Then it's going to be impactful executive conversations, getting a great first meeting, deep discovery. After that, storytelling and proposal creation, and finally closing the complex sale. So we're going to go through every stage in the next 10 weeks on how to execute top-down selling. And the reason this is so important is because with enterprise sales, less is more. With enterprise sales, fewer is actually better. You may have heard of the Pareto principle in sales. It says that 80% of your results come from 20% of your activities. Well, in enterprise sales, 80% of your sales will come from 20% of your clients. Okay, 80-20 rule. So these are real results, real income. First 4 years, average 1.3, about 240K. Nothing to, nothing to feel bad about. Certainly good money, but pretty run of the mill with enterprise selling. To be candid, pretty run of the mill, pretty average. 1 of the 4 years over plan. The last 4 years, 3.5, close to 3.6. Average 7.16 with 2 of those years over 7 figures. Honestly, when I started my coaching business, 2019, 2020, I was kind of splitting time a little bit, but that was an average over those 4 years. So the results, I mean, how many people would like to average 700K over 4 years? Raise your hand. Pretty life-changing, pretty life-changing. So I was pretty happy with those results. Okay. So I just want to share this as proof that it works. Okay. If you're a top enterprise seller, you're making between 500K and $1 million. That's just, if you go on RepView, if you look at some of the data around it, you can see what top sellers are making, and it's very realistic. I've seen that. If you're making 300% plus, you should be at 7 figures, so I was kind of somewhere in that range. All right, here's the curriculum. I already went over this, but we're going to go through every single step of the way, every stage, planning, territory management, account plan, all the skills you need. You'll walk out of here. This is kind of a crash course in enterprise selling. We're going to go pretty fast. You'll have a lot to take in. You'll have homework to do. So just try and take it really seriously because you'll come out a lot stronger. To be successful, I mean, just be present, right? You're paying money to be here. Your companies are paying money. So put your phone on silent, play all out, engaged, stay on camera. I love seeing you guys. It just makes it real for me. It's a workshop. It's not a lecture. So like I said, you probably see the informal style and that will continue. What you see is what you get. My goal is to help you and to serve you and make sure you guys are successful. So if you can benefit from this class, share it, tell others, teach others, but most importantly, apply it. You want to apply what you're learning. So all the assignments you get after each of these are built for you to apply exactly what we're going to teach. Okay. So my first question for the group is, we did a pre-survey. Some people filled it out. I got like 50, Jordan, that I looked at yesterday, but I want to just hear from everyone in the chat. What are you hoping to get out of this program or to learn in this program? I'd love to just take a few answers and make sure that I'm covering what you're looking for. High value deals. Define enterprise sales process. I like that, Cortez. We'll definitely do that. fill in the knowledge over gaps. Multi-threading, I'm seeing a few times. Building relationship with executives. Tactics to deal with procurement. I might do a little bit of procurement tactics in the closing. Everything else is, I like Jeannie, provide a family with a dream life. Love that. You're in the right position. Overcoming objections, Liz, we'll go through that during the Q&A. So you just tell me what objections you're hearing out there and I'll help you kind of deal with that. That's a perfect Q&A one. Okay. Rishi, thank you for your honesty, Rishi. I've been successful, but I actually don't know why. Why don't you look in the mirror, Rishi? It's not an accident. If you're continuously successful, you got to give yourself credit. You're doing something right. So take a few minutes and think about what you're doing right. It's called imposter syndrome. Getting multi-threaded, high-value deals. Okay, this is how to figure out my life. Smarter, not harder. Transition from sales to CS. Okay, that's a good one too. All right, everything better work-life balance, Brandon. We're not going to get into work-life balance. If you want work-life balance and habits and mindset, you got to take my 1-year coaching program. So we do a lot of that there is the personal life coaching stuff, but this is all about enterprise selling. I'll just say this. If you want better work-life balance, set boundaries. Set boundaries on when you're working. That's to me, like set and hold boundaries. I stop working at 6 no matter what. That forces me to be more efficient with my time. So that's my quick tip there. All right. I don't see anything that we're not covering except the ones I just called out. So hopefully that helps for you guys. For the guy who doesn't know why he's successful, it's because of you. It's because you find a way. You're resourceful and work-life balance. Set your boundaries. All right. So let's keep going. All good stuff. So, really, again, at its core, we're going to look at a lot today. Today, we're going to talk about the next 30 minutes or so. We're going to demystify sales. We're going to talk about transactional versus enterprise selling. We're going to talk about what it takes to win at the enterprise level, why companies change, the importance of finding a change agent. Finding a change agent is half the battle when selling to the enterprise. Okay. How to disrupt the buying process. And I'm going to introduce you to 2 concepts that I've created called yo-yo selling and predict selling that really are a methodology, a process for enterprise selling, which honestly, I haven't marketed. I haven't tried to train on it, but it works really, really well. So I recommend using those, right? Even if your company might have a methodology, these tend to work really, really well for people who deploy it. So the next question I want you to throw in the chat is what words come to mind when you think of sales? When you think of salesman or saleswoman, just throw the first words. Consultant, money, negotiation, problem solver, relationship, partner. Sleazy. Okay, we got one. Mitchell, thank you. Thank you for your honesty, Mitchell. Grit. I was looking for the negative words. These are all very nice. Pushy. Okay, Dan. Pressure, Christine. Yeah. So there's the positive words, consultant, trusted advisor, problem solver, fixer. And then there's money, pushy, greedy, right? Sleazy, right? So I'll just say this, enterprise sellers, right? If you're going to sell in the enterprise, you got to be a partner. Partnership is the word that I think of. Partnership, advisor. But if you show up as that hard closing, sleazy, transactional, get a deal guy at the enterprise clients, oof, man, that will rub them the wrong way. They are looking for long-term partners, okay? Big difference versus transactional, kind of high volume closing, all right? That's another thing that changed. I stopped being a pushy salesperson. I started being a partner. So my mindset changed, how I engaged with clients changed, how I engaged, and actually how I prospected, going to the top, right? And focusing on fewer accounts. Those are the big changes that I made. So enterprise sales is not that traditional view of sales that you think of when you think of certain industries and sales or certain type of salespeople, right? It's not that smooth talking, polished, like not listening, fast talking salesperson, right? That's just not what it is. All right. Enterprise selling is all about helping. Most of you guys have a positive view of enterprise sales, which is great because that's what it is. Okay. If you want to succeed, this is the way you need to engage with clients. Number one is when you approach your clients to prospect or in meetings, you need to approach them with the idea of helping them solve a problem or achieve a goal, rather than with the goal of selling a product or service. It's really important. Your intention needs to be helping them either achieve their goals or solve their problems. If your intention is to sell your product or service, they will see that and they will not open up. Really, really important. That is an outcome. Selling your product or service is an outcome of good intentions, which is helping them succeed. That's number one. Number two, when you sell to large corporations, enterprises, okay, especially if you have a small territory list and some strategic accounts, you have to be really good at having conversations. And those conversations should all be all about them and not you. The whole conversation is about them and their business, and it should center around how they can improve their company or life. When you look at it like that, sales is very admirable. Okay? So how much are you talking about yourself versus about them and their business? You got to check yourself. The best way to get others to be interested in you is to be interested in them first. Okay? The more interested in others you are, the more interesting to them you become. We need to write that down. The more interested in others you are, the more interesting you become to them. It's like dating. If you're interested, you ask questions, you listen, you engage, you're present. It's going to be a good date for you. If you show up and throw up, you're going to make them nauseous. So that's the key. Have a conversation about them. Number three, and this goes beyond me or you or anyone, is you actually have to be a good person. You actually genuinely have to care about their success. When you care about their success, you're going to create value. Even if you don't create value with your product or service, maybe you'll connect them with someone else. Okay? I was on a call with Kevin Dorsey the other day. He's another instructor at this school. I don't know how many people know Kevin Dorsey. He's great and super nice guy. I was helping him for an hour with the product launch that he's doing. Okay? Nothing in it for me. Just trying to help him, show him how I started my business. And I do that all the time. You genuinely have to care about helping other people. That's why I teach this course. Okay? And truly, if you get that part right, selling is going to come. So don't be attached. You must detach from the outcome. Meeting with them is good for them, not for you. Meeting with you is good for them, not just for you. You're there to help. If they don't want or need your help, move on. Even if it's at the same company, if you find someone who's just not willing to engage or share, or is not very nice, there's plenty of other executives at that same company. Okay? So don't worry. I remember I managed an account called Activision, and I met with their CIO, and he was just a total jerk at the time. He just arms crossed, didn't talk, didn't share, wasn't open, short answers. I'm like, okay, this is not my guy. It's fine. No worries. And I worked with other people. We still got some very big deals done. Okay. So don't worry. Be yourself, be authentic, be real, be kind. Right? Life is too short. But you really do need to detach from the outcome. That's the truth. The more detached you are, the higher likelihood that you're going to get the outcomes you want. I know this is hard, but this is the stuff that really will make you successful when you engage with people. Okay. Now, let's define transactional versus strategic sales. Transactional sales is more deals, lower ACV. Usually they're run by departments and directors. Typically, you have about 1 to 3 decision makers, pretty quick sales cycle. The problems you're solving are not the highest, biggest problems in the whole organization. And that's why it's usually point solutions and run rate deals. Whereas strategic deals, they're fewer, but they're much higher ACV. They're typically run by executives and the C-suite. You have COOs involved, CFOs. You might have 4, 5, 6 decision makers, sometimes more, sometimes 8, 9, 10. And the reason why you have so many is because you're solving their biggest problems and you're mapping to their top priorities. These are what we call transformational deals. There's a few guys that I know that kind of cover the space on LinkedIn. I'm assuming most people are on LinkedIn here. You look at the content. How many people knew me prior to this course? Just out of curiosity, raise your hand. Some people. Okay. So there's a few of us here who've done like 7-figure deals, 7-figure, you can put your hands down. There's a few of us who've done 7, 8-figure deals, right? I'm one of them. Jamal Raymer's one of them. Brandon Fluharty's one of them. There's not that many people talking about enterprise selling out there. Okay. And I share this because if you talk to Jamal, he's doing 1 or 2 deals a year. They're huge, right? But all of his eggs are in those couple baskets. He's deep with the accounts. He's at the C-suite. He's super engaged. That's really what we're talking about. Transformational deals that'll impact their revenue, that'll impact their customer experience, that'll impact their time to market, that'll impact their operating expenses across the company, that'll impact their employee experience, their turnover, right? We really want to look at what are their biggest problems and how does our solution impact what's most important to them. That is what I would call a strategic deal. The other thing is the deals don't take that much more time. So if my quota is $2 million, I'd have to sell 40, 50K deals to hit it, or 20, 100K deals. That is a grind. That's what I was doing that year. I missed it barely, grinding like crazy. Whereas frankly, you could sell 400 or 500K deals to hit the same $2 million quota, $2 million goal. All right. And in all fairness, the deals don't take that much more time. They really don't. So might as well go after the bigger deals, right? Especially if you're higher up. Power compresses the sales cycle. Power compresses the sales cycle. So let's get into Joel and Dustin. You can put your hands down if you want, unless you have questions for afterwards. Let's talk about why companies buy or change. Why do you think, question number 2, put it in the chat. Why do you think companies buy or change? Florian? Pain, executive pain, feeling pain, solve a problem, to achieve goals, drive revenue, reduce costs, stay relevant. Market forces compel them. These are all good reason. They're losing money. Yeah, you got it. You got it. There's 2 reasons and 2 reasons only. Sometimes we overcomplicate things. Very easy to make enterprise sales way more complicated than it is. It's complicated because there's politics and there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. That's true. But the primary reasons why companies decide to change is universal, and it hasn't changed at all from early time. Okay. It's number 1, avoidance of pain, right? So the pain could be current, could be they're losing money, losing employees, losing market share, or it could be future, which would be what we call risk, right? Risk mitigation, right? If we don't change now, we're going to be in trouble later. Right? They see it coming. That's the first reason. And the second is pursuit of gain. They're trying to achieve their goals. Just remember that. That's it. That's it. Pain and gain. Pain and gain. If you don't know what problems you're solving and the pain it's causing, or what goals you're helping them achieve and why those goals are important, you got to go back to every one of your deals and find that out, right? At the highest level in the company. That's the key. Usually if there's a gap, right, it's because we really don't have a problem. I'll give you, you may or may not relate to this story, but even on the personal level, think of anything you've bought on Amazon, right? Pain or gain, right? It's usually one of those things. You want to gain something or you're in some pain. You need to replace something. Your filter on your AC unit is, gone. It's out. It's giving you a warning. You need to order a filter. That's pain, right? I just went on vacation with my wife and we went to an art exhibit and we wanted to buy an art piece of artwork. And she was like kind of excited about it. And we went home. The lady was trying to get us to sell it. It was an expensive piece of art. And we're like, we don't want to buy it on the spot. Let's measure, let's go home. Let's see how it would look. We wait 3 days, got home from vacation, measure it. And my wife is like, I'm not in love with it anymore. We didn't buy it. I said, don't buy it if we're not in love with it. There was no pain. Is having a white wall that painful? Probably not. It's really not. We've lived with it for that long. And is the gain worth the money, right? Of having that art? Does she love it? Does she need it? Nope. No decision. Boom. No decision. Remember that. No decision is your enemy. Okay. That's why people don't change. It's because they're not in enough pain or the gain isn't big enough. It is that simple. You've got to go back to those things if you want to sell big deals. And know who's best positioned to tell you about the problems, the pains, and the gains they want? People at the top, the executives. Those are the ones who know what the company's trying to achieve and where the biggest pain points are. People at the lower levels do not have any idea. They're in their silos. They're just looking at their world, their department. Okay, so if you want to make life-changing money, you've got to get into life-changing solutions. Okay. Which of these is more powerful to drive change now, pain or gain? What do you guys think? Pain. You're right. Pain, 100%. Okay. There's something called prospect theory. Prospect theory is the guy won the Nobel Prize, Daniel Kahneman, I think his name was, something like that. He won the Nobel Prize for economics when he did his studies on prospect theory. Some really, really good studies out there. But the best way to explain prospect theory is gambling. All right. I myself have had some struggles with addiction in my life. And one of those addictions was gambling in my past. Fortunately, I'm sober now and very happy, but I used to gamble a lot. And if you ever go to a casino, let's say you win $1,000. I'm going to give a big number because you guys are big hitters. So let's say you win $1,000. What happens? Feel good. Trip's paid for. Let's go out to nice drinks, go to steak dinner. Let's go enjoy, go to the nightclub, whatever. $1,000 gone. Go blow it. It's just play money. But if you lose that same $1,000, man, the whole trip, it's on your mind. Gosh darn it, I should have stopped, lost all that money. Let's go to McDonald's. I'm not going in and get table service. I'm not going to the nightclub. No. Now you're cheap. You're cautious. So the value you placed on the loss was actually significantly greater than the value you got, even though the money was the same. The $1,000 was $1,000 won versus lost, because you had the $1,000 first and now it's gone. You put much more emphasis and pain on the loss. And in enterprise sales, what that means is people are 2 to 3 times more likely to do something to avoid losing what they have than to go after some gain that they don't have. Okay? So if they feel like your solution will mitigate a risk of loss, in other words, if they don't change now, they'll lose their market share. They'll lose their competitive edge. They'll lose their employees. They'll lose their growth. Their growth will slow. They'll lose their stock price, right? They're more likely, 2 to 3 times more likely to invest in doing something to avoid a loss rather than to go after some sort of gain. Okay. So the question you need to ask when you're in these discovery meetings early on is, what do you stand to lose if you do nothing? What do you stand to lose if you do nothing? If you don't have that answer, you're probably going to be stuck in status quo. You need to be able to address that and then use that as leverage. We stand to lose 500K a month based on conversions that aren't converting on our website, based on lost leads, based on rep turnover, because the sales reps are miserable, right? Whatever it is, the problem you're solving. What is the loss, the cost of inaction? Because that is powerful. That's why people buy 2 to 3 times more likely. If you don't do this, you are losing X. Okay? Cost of inaction. What do you stand to lose? Is this helpful, everyone? Yeah? Cool. These are just kind of high-level principles, but it's the foundation of a deal. The stuff is the foundation. Pain and gain and loss aversion. They don't teach you this in your trainings. They teach the product and the speeds and the feeds, and it's all about you. It's not about the customer. This is about the customer. You have to be really good at having customer-centric conversations. So I'll give you some examples of loss. There's individual loss and there's company loss. The questions are, what do you stand to lose personally if you don't do this? And what does your company stand to lose? Okay. And if you don't have good answers or get good answers, challenge them. But you need to ask that question. It's the foundation of whether they stay in status quo or whether they do a deal. If the loss isn't great enough, they probably aren't going to do a deal. Okay. So here's some examples of individual loss. They could lose their job. They could lose their bonus for the year. They could lose their reputation. In other words, they were brought in to make changes, brought in to achieve some goals, and it's not happening fast enough. They could be losing a lot of time, right? Slow to market. They're not going to get their product to market on time. They're going to miss deadlines. Okay. They might be losing their personal life. They might have to work nights and weekends doing admin work because, you know, they don't have automation or systems in place to help them, right? So it could be they're just miserable at home because they have to work all the time, and you're helping them out with that. So you got to get that personal, game there. And then the company side. This is the stuff that makes CEOs sign off for CFOs. If we don't do this, we lose customers. We're losing market share. We're losing revenue or profitability. We're losing our employees because our culture is broken. We could be fined if we're not compliant. If you sell security solutions or anything that has to do with compliance. We could lose our stock price. Could lose money from investors. We could be losing time or opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is all the things they can't get to because their people are busy doing manual work or non-important work. Okay. Find that pain of staying the same. Find the pain of staying the same. Opportunity cost. What that is what are you not able to do because of status quo? What can't you do because of the current situation? So some questions you could ask is, hey, if your team wasn't doing all of this manual testing of code, what could they be doing instead? If we automated this process where your team has 20 people doing this manually and we didn't have to worry about that, what would you reallocate them towards? What could they be doing that's more strategic? That's opportunity cost. Okay. What could your team be doing instead of these manual things that are taking up time and not adding value? And if they were to do that, what would the impact be on the business? Okay. Not just about how much time they're spending and what their salaries are to build a business case. It's about what can't they get to because they're doing these other things instead. This is opportunity cost. And that's absolutely something you want to ask about. Okay. So that's all the pain levers: individual pain, company pain, and opportunity cost. Those are the 3 pain levers. On the gain side, which I call the 4 levels of impact, right? You want to understand, what do they have to gain, or what do they stand to get if they are to solve the problem? So the one hand, start with pain. If you don't solve this, if you don't fix it, what do you stand to lose? The next, okay, great. Well, let's turn it around. Let's talk about if you were able to solve this. What would this mean to you? Would you get promoted? Right? Would you be a hero at your company? Are you climbing and trying to rise the ranks in your company? Find out what's in it for them. That's the first level of impact. That's the impact to your champion or impact to the buyer. That's the first level of impact. The second level of impact, I call this the 4 levels of impact. The second level of impact is the impact to the company. How is this going to help your company? How's it going to help you on the key metrics that your company is responsible for achieving? Find out the metrics you impact. Is it conversion, lead conversion? Is it customer retention? Is it time to market? Is it profitability? Find out what the metrics are that you impact, and find out what you stand to gain as a company if you were to implement this. The next level of impact is the impact to the employees. How is this going to help improve the lives of your employees? If you're selling something to IT and you're helping developers be more efficient, you're actually going to make their lives easier and better, so they can spend more time coding and doing what they love versus doing manual processes that aren't creative, right? So really understand, how are the users going to save? If I sell Salesforce and I'm automating some manual processes that sales reps hate doing, like quoting, for example, right? That could be really helpful for them. They could save a lot of time, which means more time in the field, right? So find out what it's going to do for the users. That's the third level of impact. And finally, the customers. For example, if you're helping IT developers build products faster, that means that they can build better products for customers. They can get to market faster, right? So these are the 4 levels: individual, company, user level, and customer level. And you want to be able to say, here are the gains at all 4 levels, if possible. Okay? If possible. You want to be able to show the gain in those 4 levels, and you want to be able to show the pain in the 3 levels of this: individual pain, company pain, and opportunity cost. Pain of not doing something that you want to do. Okay, so this is pain and gain. You want to amplify the pain of staying the same, and then amplify the gain of changing. You want to have both. Both are critical. This is where all your discovery should be spent. Okay? And most people don't spend a lot of time in discovery. They get to a deal and the deal stalls because they can't answer these questions. So spend more time understanding pain and gain up front and less time on the solution, on the demo, on all of the tactical stuff. Okay? This is what execs want to talk about too. If you're meeting with senior executives, this is where they want to talk. This is where they spend time. High level, goals and challenges. All right. Question number 3 is a survey. What do you think it does as far as percentage, lower percentage? By not having a decision maker involved in an enterprise deal, fill in the blank, it decreases the win rate by X%. If you don't have an executive involved in an enterprise deal, it'll decrease the win rate by X%. Fill in the blank. $10,000%. I love it. That was a big one. 100. You can go more than, you can have a 200% lower likelihood. It's not like 1 to 100%. It's not a test. You can, you know, if you win 7 of 8 and then you go down to 3 of 8, right? That's like a 300% difference. So no one's got it. You guys aren't even close. Keep going. Let's get some more answers. 80, 90, 650. Okay. I think Royce is the closest, and Shira. Royce, Hilsinger, and Shira are the closest. Yeah. So if you're an SMB, we'll define SMB as under 500 employees for the sake of simplicity. It lowers it by 80%. That's what most of you guys said there. You're pretty close. But in enterprise, it's actually triple, 233% less likely to close a deal. It's almost impossible. It's nearly impossible to close a deal if you're not engaged with the decision maker in enterprise. Just know that. impact in working with decision makers is everything with enterprise selling. Okay. The other thing is power compresses the deal cycle. When you have someone who's an executive who's telling everyone to work with you, get you what you need, the deal moves very quickly. All right. So the question is, how do you get your foot in the door with executives? And you have to tailor your message. You have to personalize it to them. You have to research. We're going to get a lot into this when we go into prospecting the power, but you can't sound like everyone else. You got to be relevant. You got to be personal, and it has to be specific, right? Think of a coffee maker, right? You put in the beans, they all come out the same way. And if your message sounds like this, right? If it's generic, if you can plug in another company, another solution, if it's not unique to them, you're going to come out with dust. You're going to come out with coffee grains, nothing. So this is what we're after, right? We're after personalization, where you go in and you make it exactly how they want it. Specific, personal, and relevant to them. That's how you get meeting with the executive. And it starts with doing research about who they are, what they care about, what their company cares about, and really thinking about how your product or service can help them achieve those goals. So when you reach out, it's a tailored message. Okay. The concept that I use for this is called linkage, right? Linkage is the connection between their stated goals, challenges, or vision as a company. If you can't find it publicly, talk to their people to lower levels and figure out what's going on so you can build that point of view. The linkage is connection between their goals, challenges, and vision and your company's value proposition for them. That's called linkage. It doesn't need to be perfect, but when you've done your homework and you come up with an idea of how you think you can help them, they are way more likely to take a meeting. The purpose of this is just to show you've been thinking about them, you've done your homework, and you really think you can help them. The more time you spend upfront on your messaging, the more likely you are to get a meeting with executives. So rather than spray and pray and hit a lot of people, be more targeted and focused and go for fewer people with a more specific, relevant message at the executive level. Okay. The challenge in enterprise selling is there's not just one decision maker. We got to find our champion and our change agent, but there's not only one. There's not only one decision maker. Okay. There's multiple people. So as more and more people join the buying cycle, the likelihood of them actually buying is less likely because there's too many cooks in the kitchen. And on average, for companies over 1,000 employees, there's about 5.4 decision makers. So that's the other challenge we're going to talk about, multi-threading. How to use champions to get to other people. Okay, you still want to work through a champion, but we need other people to get involved. So half the battle in enterprise selling is just finding a change agent, somebody who's going to shepherd you and bring you in to different parts of the organization. All right. In order to find a change agent, you got to talk to a lot of people. Title does not equal change agent. I want to be very clear on it. Sometimes people can have a lower level title and get you in front of all the right people. I had a senior director in one of my accounts get me in front of the CEO, the CFO, the VPs, the different department heads. He was great. He had a lot of pull in the company. He didn't have the title. So typically you'll know when you're meeting, when you found a change agent, you'll know, but half the battle is just finding the person who wants to change and who's willing to be an agent. What does an agent do? An agent connects you. An agent connects you with the right opportunities, the right people. That's how you know if you're working with a change agent. Okay? If they're a change agent, they know the key stakeholders and they connect you. Number two, they share their goals. They're open. They're not holding everything tight to the vest. They're open with sharing with you. Number three, they have urgency around the project. This is how you know that you're working with a change agent. Number four, they work with urgency. They get back to you quickly. Their communications are frequent. They also have a plan on how they're going to get it done, right? They know who the key players are. let's get a business case. I'm going to talk to X, Y, and Z. I need you to meet with them. We're going to do a demo with these people. They're movers and shakers. Okay. Half the battle is finding the change agent. A lot of times they're new to a role or new to a company, and they're brought in to make changes. That's why they were hired. Here's a big one. They're willing to bet their job on this. They're willing to go to bat for you. Okay. We're going to go through the skills next week on this, but your skill as an enterprise seller. Next week, we're going to talk about all about how to become a great enterprise seller, what it takes. But one of the things is to identify, engage, and empower champions. If you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. The Challenger Customer. It's all about activating mobilizers and selling to hidden influencers who can sell on your behalf in a company. This is a huge part of enterprise selling, is getting that change agent, because there's just so many decision makers. There's so many cooks in the kitchen. All right. Next question. Why do enterprise sellers take, I lied to you. I said we'd stop, but I only have a few more slides. So we'll go for 5-10 more minutes and we'll do questions. So why do large enterprises take so long to buy? Anyone? Legal, procurement, alignment, multiple. Yeah, that's right. InfoSec. Yeah, death by committee. You got it. There's just a lot of bureaucracy. They have security reviews. They have legal reviews. They have procurement departments, lots of decision makers. Really, really hard. Okay. This is why they have a lot of steps in their buying process. They have these long, complex buying process. This is what it usually looks like. They find a problem themselves. They determine where they want to go. They identify who the stakeholders are that they need to talk to. They build a case internally. They try and find some budget. And then they start reaching out. In other words, 60% of the buying cycle happens before you ever get in the door in a large enterprise. This is not how small companies buy. This is large companies, okay? Small companies just go online, boom, 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 they're quick. Big companies, not so much, right? At that point, steps 8 through 12 happen with you. This is where competitive situations arise, RFPs arise, right? They evaluate vendors, create a short list, do demos, roundtables, decision by committee, pick one, negotiate, and then change their mind 3 years later. So what you need to do is get in at step 1. You need to get in and help them identify where there's a problem in their organization and take that to executives. That's how you disrupt the buying cycle. If you want to disrupt this whole process and get out of the competitive world, you need to change the purchase path by teaching them something new about their business and giving them a compelling reason to take action. This is how you put customers in the market. This is how you put customers in the market. You teach them something new, and you give them a reason. So how do you teach them something new? You bring an insight. You bring research to them. You show them how you can help them in an area that they might not be thinking about. That is specific. It's not generic. You talk to their people. You see what's really going on. You validate, does the problem exist in their company? And then if it does, take it up. And then you give them a reason to take action. Cost of inaction. If you don't do this, it's costing you X, Y, and Z. Okay? So we are done. My last 2 concepts that I'm going to teach you right now, and then we'll get into Q&A. The first concept is called yo-yo selling. Yo-yo selling, I made it up a few years ago, and now it kind of stuck, so I just use it. But yo-yo selling is the concept that you start high, you bring in a hypothesis or a compelling point of view on how you think you can help the company based on your research, and you use it to prospect. You meet with the executive, you book a meeting, you bring the point of view, and you qualify. Is this something that is important to them? Are they thinking about it? Is it top of mind? And if it is, then you get their sponsorship to talk to their team. That's where you go down to the lower levels. And you figure out, what are they using today? How much is the problem costing them? What is their current processes? Where are the skeletons buried? What systems are they using? How many systems? How long does it take? What's the user experience? You figure out all the pain points and you come back up and you show the executive a custom demo and a custom business case based on their situation. In other words, you're just getting sponsorship to do deep discovery. When you have that sponsorship, you say, hey, I don't know how much we can help you. I don't know what your situation is. I want to take a look and go deep. Who do we need to talk to on your team? Who are the other folks? And you get that executive to be a champion, to sponsor you and to get you in, get all the information you need to build a business case and a proposal. You take it back up and then you co-present to the key stakeholders and you work through your champion to close a deal. This is the top-down approach that I've used very successfully the last 4 years of Salesforce. Start high, go down, get the information you need, surface it back up, get their commitment to do a readout. Okay? If anyone works at Salesforce, you know this process is called Ignite. You ignite change within the organization. You start high, you do your deep discovery, and you go back to the executives. So everything in between in the sales cycle, the executives aren't involved in. That's their people. That's the lower and mid levels where you're doing that discovery. They're only involved in the sponsorship and then the decision making. So you minimize decision fatigue. You minimize how much you need to drag them through the process. Okay, so your job is to sell the discovery process, not the solution. You're trying to sell the execs on the discovery process because they want a prescription that's unique to them based on their situation, their challenges, because everybody thinks they're different. And they are. Everyone's unique. Everyone's got different systems and processes. So you got to really go deep and understand what they're doing so you can show them a roadmap to change. That's where that deep discovery goes. Okay. And the reason yo-yo selling is so effective is because of decision fatigue. Win rates are actually highest when decision makers aren't overly involved in the deal, overly involved. Okay. So yo-yo, it's like, hey, your team's going to do it. I'll do all the work. I'll do all the heavy lifting. I'll come back to you. Great. Once you get all that data, once you get all that information from their team, you got yourself a business case. You got yourself, unless they're like super efficient and all buttoned up, which most companies are not, you're going to be able to make a compelling case to change, right? But you just need to do that deep discovery. So that's what yo-yo selling is all about. It's about keeping them here, right? Minimizing their involvement, but getting their sponsorship, working through their team, and making sure it's a problem worth solving. All right. The last concept is called predict selling. And it's an acronym I use. A lot of people are familiar with MEDPIC or other acronyms. This is mine. Problem with pain. Problem and pain. You got to have both. Those are the P's. We have to know. So think of predict as like a checklist to see whether this deal is going to close or not. That's why I called it predict. It's like, can you predict your close rate? And I can predict with 80% accuracy if a deal is going to close if I follow this methodology. Okay. You need to know the problem, what the pain it's causing. Number one, you need to know their why. What's in it for them? The reason. Why change? Why now? Right? You have to know the reasons. E stands for engagement. Engagement is how engaged are they? That's where all the other acronyms are missing. If they're not getting back to you, if they're ghosting you, if they're not involved, if they're not getting you connected, it's not a priority. So how engaged are they? That's the E. D is decision maker and decision process. Are we working with decision makers and do we know what their decision process is? Do we know how decisions are made? Who's involved? Is there purchasing? Is there legal? Is there procurement? This is how you avoid deals slipping because you didn't know what their process was. So you've got to find that out up front. I is impact. That's the gain. What is the financial impact and the material impact of them actually moving forward? Do we have a business case? Do we know what the gain is? C is cost or pain, cost of inaction. What is it? What do they stand to lose if they stay in status quo? It's all those pain questions. What is the cost of not changing? What is the cost of inaction? We need to quantify that. And finally, T is timeline. Why now? Do we have a compelling event? Is there a goal they're trying to go for? So use predict. You'll get a predict scorecard where you can put all your deals through predict. And actually, did I give that to you, Jordan, or not? Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, I'm going to give it to you now. I'm going to drop this in because you guys made it this long. And now we're going to go into Q&A. Sorry, I tried to manage my time, but It's hard for me. I get so passionate. All right. So there's your predict scorecard. There's your gift for today. So you can't edit this. You just need to make a copy of it. Okay. So the idea behind the predict scorecard is you just plug in your deals. Deal 1, deal 2, deal 3, and you see if you can answer these. Right. So problem with pain. What problem? What pain? Why do they need to change? Why us? Right. So going through and having these things all here. Does that make sense? So you want to be able to answer the questions here. Why is this important to my champion? What's in it for them? How responsive the customer? This is what determines the deal, not all the speeds and feeds and product stuff. Why change? Why now? Why us? The solution is not as important as the problem. Okay, so these are all the questions. It's kind of a cheat sheet for going through your deals. And if you don't have the answers, and if you can't fill out the answers to this, go back to your customer and ask them. Get to the truth. Got to get to the truth. Okay, so that's a little cheat sheet. I used it very successfully. It's a very good predictor of deals. And it's yours to use and keep. All right, Jordan, let's go to questions.
All right. We got quite a few, so I also compiled them all in a Google Doc for you to be able to read it, because if I just say read them aloud, you might fall asleep to how much I'm speaking.
Let's just do one at a
So,
time so you can
all right, one at a time. Many questions. But we'll start with one from early on from the slide. Enterprise selling is helping, where you crossed out telling, and it was what about positioning your solution in alignment with what they care about, with using the word approach versus solution to your problem.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. Who asked the question? Why don't you just elaborate?
It was from Linda. If Linda, you care to elaborate, that would be great.
I've answered. Can you repeat that? Because I had a couple of questions.
Oh yeah, sure. So your first question was about positioning your solution in alignment with what they care about, when or early on talking about enterprise selling is helping rather than telling them what to do.
Right. In other words, instead of saying this is, or knowing the pain that they're experiencing, can you reposition that into we align with what you care about as part of that tactical selling voice? Because
I think you have to. I mean, yeah, that's what helping is. What do you care about? And let's align our solutions. Let's align our approach to what's important to you. And if there's not alignment, we're gone. I think that slide, selling is helping. That's exactly what you're talking about, Linda. You just described it to a T. It's if your intention is to go in and help the customer achieve their goals, you need to care and know what their goals are in the first place. You need to understand specifically what they're trying to achieve. And that's the whole purpose of that. If there's not alignment between what you do and what they want to do, walk away early on, right? There's no point in trying to push a square peg in a round hole. So early on, you want to say, hey, I'm here to help. I want to understand your goals, your challenges, what's top of mind. And if we can help you, great. And if we can't, no worries, we can part ways.
All right. Next question was actually from the same slide, asking, that works for men. Does it work for women as well, or do you have to change up your tactics given the the dynamic of who you're speaking to?
I don't think so. I think women are more helpful in general. Not to say men aren't, but I think it works very well for women and men. I think it's just your intention as a person. It's not a tactic. That whole slide is don't use tactics. It's about actually caring about their success, having a conversation and wanting to go in with the intention of helping. That's just a human quality. I don't think it's unique to men, women, any specific gender. I think you just need to care about your clients and have an intention of trying to understand first what their problems are, what they're focused on, and then, like Linda said, align, if you can, align your solutions to what they care about. So caring is genuinely what the purpose of, I don't think men or women care differently, right? I think it's about the person and your heart and your qualities as a person rather than your gender.
All right. Next question we got was, what if your product, so talking about, defining transactional versus strategic sales, what if your product is not a necessity and it's more of a nice to have, or, you don't need the C-suite to buy in?
I saw Shara's comment, women are expected to work for free. Yeah, there's a lot of gender inequality in tech and across the board. It's awful. And I can't speak to that. I'm not an employer, but I know it's out there. So it's a legitimate concern. And if you don't have equal pay, you should say something to your company because it's not right. Sorry, can you repeat that, Jordan? That distracted me a little bit. I saw the comment.
Yeah.
Like, that sucks.
Yeah, no problem. So what if your product is not a necessity and it's more of a nice to have when we're talking about the defining transactional versus strategic sales?
Make it a necessity. Every product that I've ever coached anyone on, we can find a way. You need to get more creative to figure out how to make it a necessity. In other words, really dig deep and say, here's all the things your team. I've seen things like testing automation. I had a, I don't want to get too technical, but I had a client who sold testing automation, and she said the same thing. She's like, yeah, this is nice to have. It helps developers automate some of the testing scripts. It was very technical, very specific to IT. And when we found out those developers were spending 60% of their time manually testing, and that they actually couldn't get products to market quick, and they were paying the developers $150,000 a year times 50 developers, and that this was actually a $5 million problem based on lost time on getting products to market, lost revenue, and developer productivity, it became a must-have. So you really got to get creative and figure out how your problem is necessity. If you don't think it's needed, your clients won't either. So it starts with you really digging deep and understanding, why do my clients need this, right? What are they missing out on by not having this? What can't they do because of it?
All right. And then when you were getting into the pain and gain section of the presentation, someone asked, does that change depending on the economy, your angle of pain versus gain?
Yeah, I think it does. I think right now we're in a pretty unique place with companies trying to reduce cost, right? So cost reduction is pain. That's not gain. Cost reduction is like, we need to reduce cost. We're working with fewer people. We have less resources, right? So if you sell anything that can improve efficiency, right? Automate manual processes, enable people to do more with less, reduce costs, it's going to align way better right now. So I think that's, where people are focused on our workforce optimization. So in other words, getting workers to be productive. They're worried about cost reduction, right? They're worried about profitability. Those are kind of the areas that companies are thinking about right now. And that's why you're seeing a lot of layoffs. That's why you're seeing a lot of cost containment, cost reduction, reorgs going on. So anything that can help people do more with less is going to align really well to an economic downturn or an economic, I would say just recession type, and anything down market, it's going to align better with cost reduction. So I think the pain and gain principles are still true, but you want to lean heavily into the reduced cost, right? You're bleeding right now, right? If you don't change, you're going to continue to be inefficient. You have to do more with less. I really think that message resonates well, especially with finance right now.
All right. And then for prospect theory, when talking about the cost of inaction, what do you stand to lose? Is that something that you ask, that you ask yourself, or that you ask, like, that's your research question as you're diving in and doing research, or do you ask that of them directly?
I usually ask directly of them. I mean, you don't really know with research. You kind of like, people don't always put that out there. If we don't do this initiative, we're going to lose X, Y, and Z, right? It's more of a direct question, I would say. I think in the research, you want to look at I think asking yourself, hey, if we don't do this, they may not be able to hit these core initiatives, which they outline that they want to do. I think that's a good thing. It's like, what could be one question to ask in the research? If you see their top 3 or 4 priorities or goals, it's like, well, what could be a risk for them hitting the goal, right? What are some insights that might prevent them? What might prevent them from hitting the goal? And then if you can tie that to your solution and be able to say, hey, if you're not thinking about this, you could be at risk. I think that's pretty clever and creative, but usually it's a question that I ask directly. It's like, hey, if you do nothing, what's going to happen? Just out of curiosity. Here's the way I phrase it. People usually make a decision or make a change when they stand to gain something great, or where they're in a position where they might lose something significant, if they don't take action. What's it for you? What do you stand to gain or lose if you don't do anything, right? If you do this or if you don't do it, what do you stand to gain if you do it? And what do you stand to lose if you do nothing? I would just ask it just like that. These are questions that are very curious and interested in the client, and they're really going to provoke some thought. And that's what you want. You want the client thinking. You want the client sharing. So I love that question. It's really good. But ask the client, find out from them. Nothing's true until they say it. So all your research the research is like a way to get in the door. That's kind of the way I look at it. The research gets you in the door. It shows that you're serious, you're thinking about their business, but honestly, it's whatever they tell you they're focused on and where they're challenged. That's where you need to align, to Linda's point.
All right. I have another question from Linda that's based on the prospect theory, kind of leads off of that, is wondering how this translates in the cause social impact sector. Is this theory applicable across all sectors?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're going to lose employees or you lose your reputation because you're not hiring with diversity or inclusion, or you're not building a culture of, fairness. I mean, there's diversity and equity and inclusion DEI teams now. It's huge focus on social awareness, social justice. I haven't sold anything in that particular space, so I can't speak to it. But I think in that space, if you're losing employees, if you could get sued because of, not being accessible to certain people, right? That absolutely falls into prospect theory. It's like, what is your business losing by not having a good reputation, right? Are you not attracting and retaining the best talent? That's all loss aversion.
All right. And so then based on the 4 levels of impact, how would you ask questions around the champion's impact? And do you do this all on the first call, or is this more of a strategic split it up?
Honestly, this happens over lots of calls. You're not just going to pepper them with these questions. I think it's a conversation where you're just practicing digging deep, right? It's like, wow, that sounds like a real problem. Why is it a problem? What's it costing you? What is it costing your company? Okay. Can you elaborate on why that problem exists? Have you tried to solve it before? And then they're talking, and then you're listening, and you're asking another question. You're digging deep and digging deep and digging deep. It's all about them. It's like you're a therapist, okay? And you're just listening. So it has to happen naturally versus happening on a checklist where you're going down and checking the specific questions off. It also happens over multiple meetings. That's the truth. It happens over multiple meetings and not in one meeting, because that one meeting, if you go through all of that, would be 5 hours. So, I mean, it's these sales cycles are long, right? They're 3 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months. Shouldn't be longer than 12 months, but there's a lot of meetings with people. So you want to kind of gradually fill in the gaps as you go. But generally, yeah, the impact questions, I love to say, I start with the pain questions first, and then I go to the impact questions. So it's okay, well, why are you here? Why'd you take the meeting? And kind of they'll share the challenges or what they're trying to do and say, okay, great. Well, let's assume we could solve this. Let's assume, we could take care of it. What does that mean for you? What does it mean to your company? How's it going to help people? So I kind of keep it really casual and dig a little deep. So the what's in it for you questions, hey, how does this help you in your role? That's how I'll ask it. How does this help you in your role?
All right. Now I have a question that actually it generated a lot of chat there as it was asked. So it seemed like a lot of people want to know, and it caused a lot of discussion. So this is a good one. What happens if you start a motion at CTO, good solid first meeting, then his deputies take over and box you out in the next several meetings? How often do you keep the CTO or, C-suite engaged throughout the deal planning, execution, technical proof work?
Such a good question. So if you have a great CTO and they say, great, work with my team, right? Perfect. You got the sponsorship. You're following the yo-yo. The team now, if they're blocking you and not giving you what you need, you got to go back to the CTO. You got to say, hey, I don't know what was communicated or where there's a misunderstanding, but we're not getting this information. This is, I know you wanted this and you wanted us to do the study, but we can't do it because your team's not providing. Is there something I'm missing? Can you help me through this? Right. So it's not like throw their people under the bus. It's like, hey, you asked us to do this, but we can't get the information because your team's not cooperating. So that's how I would approach it. If they're boxing you out, if they're like blocking you, if they're not giving you anything, I would definitely go back quickly to the CTO. If they are giving you stuff and they're just trying to take over and like, hey, work through us now, just keep the CTO in the loop until you're ready to do the readout. You do as much discovery or as much evaluation, but then you go back up to the CTO and you keep them in the loop frequently because you want that line directly with the CTO, even if it's one way where you're just updating them, where if things go sour or things go awry or those people are not valuing or they don't see the big picture of the solution, you can go back and say, hey, here's what we learned. Here's what the team's focused on. I want to make sure we're aligned to your key goals and objectives, and they're kind of going off on a different track and they're not looking at this the same way. I could use your coaching. So you're getting the CTO to kind of coach you. You're not like throwing them under the bus, but you're getting them to coach you on how to engage with their team. And honestly, a lot of times at that point, the executive will just go over the top and say, hey, get them that you need, stop messing around, let's go here. So if you have a strong leader, a strong change agent, and it's really important to them, a lot of time they'll make sure their team is in line if they're totally off track in what they're doing. Don't be afraid. You got to have that strong line with the champion. You have to have that in case the team goes awry.
All right. Then we have for decision fatigue, we have a question. We sell to nonprofit funders. There is often an extra level of decision-making in the board, even after execs have decided. Are there tips on dealing with boards as well, or in helping the exec deal with their board?
Yeah, just make sure they have a good business case. Like put it on their template, put the business case on their template and practice with your CEO. Do a dry run with whoever's presenting to the board and make sure they have all their ducks in a row. So I rehearse it with them typically before the board meeting. I had that with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services where the CEO had to present to a board and we practiced back and forth. We made sure I coached him on the deck and what to say and literally worked with him on the presentation. So that's what I would say is like coach them, make sure they're adequate to speak to the key points that the board's going to want to hear. I don't generally present to the boards. I let them do it. So in my past, I haven't done it myself. If you can present to the board, great, but usually they're presenting to their own board. That's pretty typical.
All right, I think we have time maybe for one more. I see there's a bunch more questions that dropped into the chat since I started calling out the questions from the middle of the presentation. Let's see.
Got to get your questions in earlier next time.
I know, and there's a lot. There's a ton. What are some specific strategies that help you detach from the outcome?
Oh, that's so good. I love that. I can go on forever on this topic. Focus on what you can control. Okay. For me, if you're running circles around deals and stressing and obsessing and driving yourself crazy about the deal versus, okay, there's nothing else I can do at this point. So let's go to the next client. Let's prospect to the next client. Let's focus in other areas. Stay busy. That's really, for me, like stay busy with revenue generating activities with RGAs versus running circles around the same deal and going crazy, driving yourself crazy. That's one. The second is like, you have to look at yourself for not just your quota attainment, not just your, W-2. You got to look at yourself as, and value yourself for, other things in life that matter. What kind of father or wife or husband or mother or friend are you, right? Are you taking care of your health? Are you running? Do you have other things you can be proud of, right? So your just outcome of sales is just one outcome, but what about your outcome in your family? What about your outcome in your health? What about your outcome, in other areas of life, right? Your career is just one area of life. It's really important, but it's not the only area. So do things you can be proud of outside of work.
All right, and we are just about at time, so won't be able to get to every and all questions, but do appreciate them all coming in. Before we go, quick housekeeping item is that the recording will be shared with you later today. The slide deck will definitely be shared, so don't worry. You will get the trying to remember the exact name. The predict scorecard will be shared as well. And don't forget to sign up for cohort meetings, which do happen on the off days before our next class next Thursday. We really appreciate feedback from you all. So you will get a survey link from me as well, through email, through Slack. I'll find a way to get this all out to you. But otherwise, thank you all so much. Ian, any final words before we wrap up?
Keep coming back. Show up. We're just getting started. I'm serious. Last time I went, you're here. Keep showing up. It's going to get better and better. We're building it up. So go through all 10. That's my only words. All right. Have a good day, guys. Take care.
Thank you.